We would be very happy if the people who are sitting there come and join us on the table, but you don't have to, okay? It's not an obligation, but this is a dialogue. So the idea in a dialogue is that everyone is able to speak. And we're very happy that today the Interfaith Liaison Committee has been working at the Talanoa Dialogue. We had a beautiful meeting, out of which resulted a call. And this is the Interfaith Talanoa Dialogue call to the COP28. And we have had the nice acceptation of the presidency to come and take the call from us. So it is our pleasure to hand it over to you officially.
Thank you so much.
And we would like we actually sent it to you in advance, so maybe you would like to tell us all something about it. You have many faces in the room.
First of all, hello. First of all, thank you so much for having us. And we're so excited to have received this wonderful document from you guys. So some of you might know that we've been working on the Interfaith Dialogue also at the COP28 team, and this has been a very predominant pillar at COP28. We worked at the Global Faith Leaders Summit also on the 6th and 7th of November, where we've also heard the voices of the faith communities, and where also the faith communities all delivered a letter also to the COP28 president. So we very much appreciate it, and this is something that will go back also to the presidency, to the president, and hopefully we can have this continuation in every COP and have this continuously. So thank you so much.
Henrik Dalper here is the co-chair of the Interfaith Liaison Committee, and he also wants to say something.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for coming here and receiving the call from the Talanoa Dialogue. We are very happy to see that faith are recognized by this presidency. And we have been working as an Interfaith Liaison Committee for many years. And to be recognized is also important for us as a network. We are representing those faith-based organizations who are active on COP on different issues. So the call you have is a dense mass of text that comes from many dialogues, and also it's an expression of people of different traditions actually can come together to this global challenge that we all are facing today. So I'm happy and I'm humbled to have you here receiving the text. Thank you so much.
So Mr. Ahmed Al-Kardaka, you're most welcome to stay with us in this dialogue. You have around the table here some faith leaders from many different faiths and from many different regions of the world. So if you have the time to stay with us for a little while, you're most welcome to stay. But if you have to run, we also accept that.
Thank you so much. I'll stick around for a little bit and then I'll head to my next session. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So, as Henrik said, this was the result of a beautiful meeting and many hours of work in order to condense it into a call. So we're very happy that this is something we could do today with all of you. So today, we have an order of people who we have invited to bring the initial words, and then it's an open dialogue. So please invite the first speaker, Henrik.
Yes, I would like to invite Reverend James Bagwan from the Pacific, and I hope you share your minutes with some younger person from the Pacific as well. So please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Henrik. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for this opportunity to give some reflections on where we're at the beginning of the second week of COP28, heading into some very important negotiations. We are running out of time for negotiations, and we are running out of time for the planet. And I think it is significant for us as people of faith to also consider how we collaborate in between COPs and the work that we need to do as people of faith, as a group that together account for 85% of the human population on this planet, to use the moral strength that we have, the ethical strength that we have, to call our leaders to embrace the moral and ethical leadership that is required to keep the planet at 1.5. Just the other day, for those of you who were here last week, you remember Colombia became the latest country to sign or to endorse the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. And they did so as a fossil fuel producing country. In their conversation with us afterwards, we were discussing how for them it was part of their political understanding of the ecological conversion that the planet has been called to. And this is not a new ecological conversion. This is something that Pope Francis alluded to in Laudato Si in 2015. So we need that to continue at a political level. And this is where our role as faith communities become very, very important. Having said that, I'd like to hand over to Betty Radule from our Ecological Stewardship and Climate Justice team at the PCC to make her intervention on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Yagoe and Kaselelie. To our representative from the presidency, thank you for being here. My name is Betty. I am a daughter of Oceania from the Marshall Islands and Federated States of Micronesia. I am the Ecumenical Enabler for Climate Justice at the Pacific Conference of Churches and a Pacific Champion for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, as are all of our faith communities in the Pacific. It's a privilege and an honor to be at the COP with the very first Faith Pavilion. And I celebrate the work that has been done this year on loss and damage. This moment is a cultivation of a decades-long struggle for climate justice, but there is still much more work to do. Firstly, solutions for adaptation, loss, and damage must be community-led and non-prescriptive. Indigenous communities know best how to solve our own problems. To reflect the priorities of frontline communities, we can look to alternative funding mechanisms like the Cato Fund in the Pacific, which is currently being supported by PCC. And through this process, ask what are the principles that ensure much needed, urgent support for frontline communities. Second, considerations for non-economic loss and damage must be developed further. A common conundrum is how can we quantify non-economic loss and damage? But it's not about that. When you have a community like the people of Bikini Atoll who are facing the prospect of relocation for the second time, first because of nuclear bombs and now because of climate change, no dollar amount will ever compensate this trauma. Spiritual damage requires spiritual healing. Cultural damage requires cultural healing. So how can we facilitate the process for healing? How can we ensure that we do not become repeat offenders to our brothers and sisters? In another meeting this week, I shared the story of my sister who was hit by a car on her moped, and the family of the man who caused the accident came with his entire family with food and money to apologize and support my family through her healing journey. It's about restorative justice and bringing harmony back to our souls, to the souls of our communities and the soul of our planet. Third, more work must be done for youth empowerment. Churches are in a great place to transform youth, building their capacity to organize, fundraise, campaign, and fellowship with one another who are suffering. We saw this at the Samoan youth event at the Pacific Pavilion. And we see this in the ecumenical youth community of the Pacific, sharing solidarity from Mauhinui to West Papua, who launched a powerful statement to their leaders just 2 weeks ago in New Caledonia, the most powerful and comprehensive statement on climate change I have ever seen. As babies, the first stories we hear are of Adam and Eve and the great floods of Noah and the whale that swallowed Jonah. Stewarding creation is already rooted in faith. What are we doing to enable our youth to live up to this responsibility? In the Pacific, we have been mindful of the narratives about a just transition away from fossil fuels, where deep sea mining and nuclear energy are framed as climate solutions. We come from a region that has experienced 315 known nuclear bombs, the equivalent of 7,000 Hiroshimas in just the Marshall Islands alone, now facing mining from uranium from ancestral lands, nuclear waste dumping into our precious sacred ocean, and the desecration of our sea floor threatening our very lives. We ask, whose voices are centered in a just transition? If the solutions cause further harm to vulnerable communities, are they really solutions? A just transition will not happen when we continue to exploit our planet, and we aim to reweave the ecological mat by looking at alternative models for development, like the REM framework. In March of this year, church leaders from all over the Pacific met in my birthplace, Majuro, Marshall Islands, and made a historical call for a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. This formidable statement is titled Kange Jubar, which in the Marshallese language means strongly rooted and steadfast like the ironwood tree that grows on our coast. Kange Jubar represents our communities holding the line for our islands and turning the tide for a new age, one without fossil fuels. From the Pacific to the World Council of Churches and now to COP, the trajectory of this call represents the critical influence of churches who not only deliver their vision to our world leaders, but to each and every heart in their congregations, in the spirits and minds of each worshiper, using faith as a powerful tool for resilience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, we're having a dialogue, so we will be very happy to hear more from you, but we wanted to have every speaker speak 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Or 4 minutes. Sorry to
So
cut
sorry,
you.
I was not given a time, but I was just about to wrap up my statements. So I just want to say Komo Tada and Konge Jubar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Betty. Did you need more time to finish?
No, you caught me right at the end. Thank you.
Good, I'm glad I didn't catch you before. It's my pleasure now to introduce Maureen Goodman. She is with the Brahma Kumari, the representative at the UN in Vienna, and a director of activities in London.
Thank you very much. And I very much concur with what my sister was saying just now, that it really is about healing. And we do live in a very traumatized world, and a lot of healing is needed on every level, on the inner and outer levels. And I was privileged to be at the pre-COP Faith Summit for Faith Leaders just early last month. And the whole theme was about inclusivity. So inclusivity of faith, of young people, of women, bringing science and spirituality together. So that was a great inspiration. And then when I arrived here, I've just come for the second week, and this morning I saw the Faith Pavilion. I was like, wow, because I expected a booth or something, but you know, a whole building. So thank you very much to the UAE government for putting the voice of faith more center stage. It's so crucial. And I know that we're very much now in the midst of a global stocktake, and it's very key, and a lot of emphasis is being put at this time. And I think the dimension that faith can bring to this is that, are we doing a stocktake, yes, of the finance, of the resources, etc., but what about the stocktake of the well-being of people? Actually, this is what needs to be center stage. And it's very important for us to call our governments to account on this. And I actually will quote Dr. Jeffrey Sachs from the Faith Summit, where he said, governments are meant to be the servants of the people, not the masters. So we need to call them to account. Putting people at the center of development, of decision-making, of the global stocktake will enable a greater voice for compassion and justice to actually be the foundation that takes us forward into the next phase, which is just so crucial over the next few years. And so this is the importance, I feel, of faith communities to bring the spiritual dimension, the dimension of compassion, and of overall well-being, not just physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I will now give the word to our digital speaker from California, Bishop Mark Andrews, who has been very important in our work for this, and also a sponsor part of the Talanoa dialogue that we were very happy that you did. And also this is an example that we can also do much work even if we not travel. So you're a good example of this, Bishop Mark. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being with us, even though it's probably an incredible hour where you're sitting, and for bringing this vision you have to the table. It's my pleasure to introduce Monique Nardi, who has just come to sit here. She was humbly sitting at the back. She's the nice person with whom we started the conversation about these religious dialogues on the COPs. So thank you for making this event and this assembly, this dialogues possible, Monique, really. Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to invite Safira Rameshwar to speak to us about her perspective on the stocktake of the COP29.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My name is Safira Rameshwar. I serve as a representative for the Baha'i international community to the United Nations. I'm from Australia originally, but now based at the UN in New York. I want to echo the comments of many of my colleagues already for the increased institutionalization of faith, religion, and belief here in COP processes. And in the spirit of looking at a faith stocktake at COP28 and exploring this question that was posed to us about what is missing in climate discussions and action, I wanted to offer maybe 3 reflections. The first reflection is about co-design. And under increasingly intense pressure to find solutions, we're facing many complex processes. And I think by now we've realized that technical solutions alone are not going to move us towards solutions. We really need to look at people. And this is the part where religion plays quite a significant role, because culture, worldviews, values for the vast majority of the world's populations are shaped by religion. So the question around co-design is, that there have been tendencies in the past to almost instrumentalize religion towards predetermined objectives. And so to be able to co-design together means consulting with others, means bringing the insights from the principles and the values of our faith, our world's faith traditions, but also the experience that faith traditions are generating on the ground, and to bring those insights to bear on these issues that are facing humanity. And so what would it look like to actually co-create the broader process around COP using these insights from faith principles as well as experience? The second reflection I wanted to offer is this idea of the flow of knowledge, and what faith communities do very well in terms of their mobilization of communities and their connectedness between communities, within communities, from the local to the national to the international levels. There's a flow of information that I think those beyond COP would really appreciate, having the insights from the conversations that we have the privilege and the honor of being a part of while we're here. And I think there is a responsibility that we have being part of these spaces to not only share with our constituencies insights coming from those spaces, but also then to reflect what is coming from the action at the grassroots in the spaces that we are engaging in. The third point I wanted to highlight is this idea of being part of a global learning process. None of us have the answers. We're seeing more and more how important inclusivity is and these pieces of collaboration. We don't have the answers alone, and we need to allow ourselves room to learn, room to grow, room to make mistakes, room to ask questions, and really see ourselves as part of a global learning process. We're working within a shared framework. And so from each of our vantage points, what are the pieces that we are learning that we are then able to share that is helpful to others who are also trying to advance similar processes? So as we move on into the second week of the climate conference, very grateful for the Faith Pavilion. I think that creates spaces for us to continue to connect and collaborate. Love this question of what happens between COPs. I think that is something that we can continue to ask each other and reflect on over the course of the second week, and maybe give ourselves a goal of trying to figure out what is the action that will come from all of the dialogue that we have shared together at this climate conference. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you for opening up this dialogue.
Thank you so much. I will now invite Bishop Dennis Rakoto Safai from Madagascar. Excuse me for my bad pronunciation of your name, but please, Bishop Dennis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this time we are coming together to discuss and to dialogue, and especially to share many things together. I am very privileged to attend this COP28, and I am very glad to share what is going on in our planet, especially in Madagascar. I am working with the government because in my country, the church and the government are working hand by hand, and we are supporting each other. But in the sake of this climate change, the impact of this climate change is very, very heavy in our area because we are an island. As an island, we were hit by the cyclones 3 times a year, sometimes up to 7 every year. After that was the flood, and after flood was the drought. So many times we were suffering of this climate change. But the biggest problem in that damage was who will provide us kind of more deeply conversation, and who will provide kind of help for the nation and all of the people who were lost of their lives, lost of the crops, lost and their properties, and sometimes they left their place because of a drought. In my country, some of the people were walking around 15 kilometers to have little or small waters, not only to drink or to use for cooking, but even we don't have any time to help each other. So my question is, how do we as people of faith to make our hope in the future? Because we are losing hope. Many people are losing their lives, their future. How can we to collaborate? How can we to strengthen not only our faith, but to work together, to ask some help for vulnerable people, not only in my country, but in Africa and around the world. So in that case, I hope this dialogue will help us not only to ask, but for me to go together very deep the root of this climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for your good words in bringing your island in the room. I would like to pass the word now to Jocavet Solano. She is an indigenous from Panama, and she was working with Memoria Indígena, the indigenous memory, and she will tell us about her perspectives on the stocktake of the COP.
Thank you so much. Well, I come from Panama, from Conadole people. This is an indigenous people. In Panama, we have around 400 islands. When I think in my people, I remember the singing of the grandmother and grandfathers in the hammock, who remind us the importance of relationship. And relationships must also be strategic. Some brief reflection of the role of the faith community when it's come to increasing climate ambition. First, be strategic in our participation as communities of faith. In influencing the negotiation, how can we pressure our governments to make the right decision to increase the ambition of climate action in our country, regionally, globally, at COP, like this COP28 and the others? We need to join forces to continue pressing on this issue. Second, ensure the implementation of loss and damage financing mechanisms accompanying this process so that they are carried out and reach vulnerable communities, because this money is not going our communities. And then when I listen a lot, my people and other indigenous people, they say how that kind of reality is going to be true if the community of faith can work together as indigenous people too, with indigenous people too. There, the last spirituality is a very important element. From indigenous perspectives, the climate crisis is caused by spiritual issues, by the breakdown of relationships. How can we indigenize the system which in this process, if broken, at least the strength of faith to continue? We are called to experience this spirituality in our own faith community and mobilize from the faith we have so that our spirit awaken. This is how my people should in the council house, so that everyone who hears the message that all relationships are important is infected with this ethic of good, el buen vivir in Spanish, living, to live in a land without evils, una tierra sin males in Spanish, as the indigenous community proposed. Our understanding of the presence of God in the realities of the people of the world and relationships must be permeated by narratives that form a spirituality of relationships and make a contra-narrative to the narratives of death that not value lives. As community of faith, we can join forces and permeate this negotiation to increase climate ambition from the stage on our faith. And when it's finished, our singing in our community, indigenous people, we say, Gavida malar que no hay malo, it's meant, pay attention, because it's important, all our relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jochebed, for waking us up. We need that, making the call. We also, now I'd like to invite Mauro Maud from Kenya, right? And he is here as a youth representative. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Mauro Maua. I am an activist representing the Lutheran World Federation, and I'm one of the climate champions in the Lutheran World Federation, coming from Kenya, a global south country in Africa. When Article number 14 of the Paris Agreement was being drafted and eventually adopted, this very same article envisioned a year, and specifically 2023, a year of assessment in what is referred to as the global stocktake, and by virtue, that is why we are here. And I want to speak to the three most important questions that are before us. Where are we? What's going on? What's the way forward? With regards to the COP28, where are we? You can't do the same thing year in, year out, time in, again and again, and expect different results. We come to the COP, the loss and damage fund is operationalized. More pledges, much more money. A battle that has been fought for over 30 years. But let us assess the works of our own hands, our collective responsibility. More pledges every now and then. Number one, is that money enough? Of course, we have to say the truth. That money is not enough. It equals to about 0.2% of the total monies that are needed, least to say, with countries coming from our global south, and at least the small island and developed state countries, okay? But let us give it a look in the other lens. These are pledges, and we clap. What is needed? Friends, colleagues, what is needed? Action. Action is what is needed. We need that money, enough of the pledges. As a youth activist, presenting voices of millions and millions other youth who are being brought under the platform of faith-based organizations, we would want to see action, not pledges anymore. Today morning we come here, we have the 4th plenary, the reports are read, we clap. But did you ever know that there's nothing that they have concluded upon? Look at the global Stocktake draft, specifically item number 35. There's nowhere where the parties and negotiators have decided on how to phase out fossil fuels. The terms are there. The will is almost there, but concrete action is not there. As a young man growing and being nurtured on the platform of faith, what brings me here? What do I speak about? Whom do I speak to? Where, when, and how? As the first respondent, we have lived with the very same approach, from local to global to local again. We, the young people, at the global level, at the local level, at the regional level, are the worst hit. But guess what? We are the first respondent. When people are displaced, they run to the church. We share with them our homes. Okay? When people are fighting, a nation that is invested with fights and wrangles and wars over the mess that has been created by the loss and damage, you know what happens? We have stood as a shield, raising one another. So in a very fair statement to our moderators, that what we need now is this party and this delegation and this year and this COP to act on what's best. Lastly, as I bring it home, with regards to loss and damage, a thematic track that I've been following keenly, we have to change the narrative. It's not just going to be about the economic losses, but rather the non-economic losses. How will you compensate a society that has lost hope? A society that time in, year out, has to face the wrath of floods. Like in my country, Kenya, what my family is specifically going through right now. We are displaced. It's all over the news. You can go read River Tana. What do we have to say about Madagascar? What do we have to say about the threats that are facing the islands? What do we have to say about countries that have had to deal with extreme wildfires? Let's be agent of hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maro and Betty, for bringing the youth voice in the room and for being so passionate about action. So this is the person who was the last of the list. Now we want to have this moment as a dialogue, and we would like each one of you to feel able to speak to this COP28 Stocktake and tell us what you think, what actions you would like to see happening between now and next COP. We are really happy to hear each one of you. Joy, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And as an old activist, I will say that we've been waiting a long time to get at least this far. But one of the things I want to challenge us as faith communities collectively is the slogan that we've worked with on Global Stocktake has been about ambition, ratcheting up ambition. And I think the challenge to us is to ratchet up ambition in how we collectively bring our passion, our insights, our voices, our people, our values, our spirituality into the midst of the negotiations. We can't stay in a bubble, you know? It's easy to talk to one another now, but we need to ratchet up the ambition to engage, and also to engage back home. So that the question that you raised at the beginning about the in-between is really important. We need to be ratcheting up that ambition with our capitals, with our elected politicians, with our church leaders on the ground, with our communities. And we need to, as you say, change the narrative. We need to be about changing the narrative of ambition so that when it comes to our own stock take, our own personal and institutional stock take, which I think we need to put on the agenda. You know, what is your temple, Gurdwara, church doing? What's your stock take about? So that's, yes, that's a response to what I've heard so far, and I hope we hear a lot more of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joy. So 2 things. One, this is a dialogue. So we don't have to answer each other. We can speak from another space if we want to. Second, there is a technical way you can identify that you want to speak, because Henrik and I might have our eyes in another direction. By pressing once your mic, there will be a light coming on the screen in front of us. So then we know who wants to speak, and then we will be able to take you into account. So the floor is open. Try to keep what you have to say to the essence. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Valerian. Let's get this to where you can hear me. So, and thanks to everyone for the effort that you put into the Talanoa dialogue and to the statement, the call to the COP presidency. I think this is a very valuable activity. I'd like to build briefly on what Joy said in terms of changing the narratives that we need to do and ratcheting up ambition. There's one ambition that we rarely talk about. So we talk about ambitions for technologies and for new power sources and for changing agriculture, but we don't talk about the ambition of actually ratcheting down greed in society. And when you know the statistics and look at the statistics of who's valuable for what amounts of emissions, you see that a lot of what stands behind it is actually greed. And I would put it as a challenge and a call to the religious communities to do what they can to help with ratcheting down greed, because I think this is the community that can do so. We scientists can't do much on that front. We can work on the technological and the scientific front, but the root of it, ratcheting down greed, is something that I would like to see us take on much more intently and perhaps much more successfully.
Thank you, Mark. And really also, we are happy if the people who talk at the beginning take the word again and add to what they wanted to say. Yes, go ahead, Deborah. I saw it. Okay. Okay, Deborah, and then Elena.
I want to say thank you to everyone. It's been a long way. We have a conversation with Valerie and Henrik. She has been doing this one for 12 years. And my name is Deborah Boudreau on behalf of the Buddha Tzu Chi Foundation. 12 years is a long process. At the beginning, we don't have this kind of space, but now we can sitting together, talk about what is our stock take. For the past 12 years, I have to say, appreciate to every single one of you who's sitting on this table. And when I look back, I heard Sophia mention about design and a lot of information floating around the table. What should we do from here? This is our 50 years, Buddha Tzu Chi Foundation, 50 years, 8 years ago. Our founder, Dharma Master Zheng Yan. If you see her hand, she's putting left and right together. The thumb is a bridge. Left hand is your compassion. Right hand is your wisdom. We bring the compassion and wisdom together and to build it up. Where should we go? Our heart, the future. Left hand, wisdom. Right hand, compassion. Your thumb is a bridge. Turn around is your heart. Every day, we're living with this. Buddhist, we show your compassion, but we use your wisdom and your heart to bring the community together. We talk about loss and damage. We talk about fossil fuels. It's all come back to the island, to every single way that we are facing right now. So do whatever we say. Say whatever we do. We know the goal. We all know what we are doing. Brothers and sisters, we have hope. Hope is from ourselves. Let's face the challenge. 4 directions, united into one common home. That's protected our home. We give every one of us a harmonious life, and then build it up the mutual love together. From there, let's work together, cooperation, collaboration, communication. Beyond those, the most important, let's give every one of us a big hug to yourself. We have future. We can make it happen, but start it from ourselves. We need to continue, come back to this table. We need to continue to share the story, what we are doing. We need to work with the intergeneration to share what we are facing the challenges. So, working together, face the challenges. The hope is in our hand. Compassion, wisdom, bonding together with the love and heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I give the word to Elena, please.
Thank you, Henrik. Thank you, Valeria. I would like to do an echo of what my colleagues said before about the non-economic losses and damages. I think this is a really critical aspect of the discussions. We are not seeing anything about how can we put some policies about it, no? On the other side, the other day we had a meeting with the IPCC Vice Chair, and they will start a new cycle of the new IPCC report. We are not doing academic research, but we have a lot of knowledge because we are working on the ground, and the churches are the communities affected by climate change. So I think we need to find a way to work together to bring all this knowledge to the IPCC. I think the Vice Chair was very open to receive all this knowledge somehow. So I think through the Interfaith Liaison Committee, after the COP, we can think about how can we do that together, no? Bring all this knowledge to include the faith aspect in the next IPCC report. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. I take the opportunity as a chair that I also can take the mic and speak, and you can't stop me. It's interesting to listen to all of this, what we have heard, that faith communities actually have a contribution to this, but maybe have been a bit too sort of incognito, really not trying to say what I am not that important. But I was my first COP in 2006, and I can say they were talking about action also at that time. So action is something that every COP comes with an action plead. And of course that is important. But what I also heard from Samuel Hook from Bangladesh, who left us this year, he said, already then, he said, we have the political tools for doing this. We have so much science and even much more now. We have the knowledge of what to do. But we are missing the driving forces for us to act. And where do they come from? Rhetoric question. But also what Mark was pointing out, the greed complex that we are also in. And I guess you also go with the selfishness and the apathy. And I think that we can see both the greed, the selfishness, and the apathy that is not addressed by science. It's not really addressed by the political interest, even that. That must be something that different faith-based traditions, they always address. Selfishness and greed as something we have to cut. All traditions have fasting. All traditions have something on justice, on the most vulnerable, to take care of each other, to take care of Mother Earth. And the indigenous spiritualities is a gift for us who's still struggling so much in monetary values to see everything as a resource and not as a gift that we live from. So I want to sort of encourage you all, from every tradition you come, go back to the tradition and look, how is the relation to Mother Earth described? How is it? Coming from a Christianity, I know there are lots of problems with Christianity's stewardship, who has gone more into being the owner of the earth, being the one who can actually think of it as resources, when it's not, it's just a gift. And life itself is not just about humanity. The anthropocentric view is also much a part of the negotiations. We negotiate just for humans. And it might sound like I'm a hippie, but I'm not. I think this is actually something that has been pushed out of our different traditions to be careful of all kind of life. Back to indigenous spiritualities, who kept that. They are not only protecting the biodiversity of the world, they have also protected that kind of understanding of the relationship between humanity and Earth. And we have to repent, I would say, from some of our ideologies, because they are just bringing us farther away from the solutions. And the third thing, and I think that's what goes with you, is about trust building. This Interfaith Liaison Committee we have been working for some years now, building trust from the ground, from our different traditions, to see we see the same earth, we see the same problem, we come from different traditions. How can we come together and build trust for action, for the action so much in need? We are seeing so much of destroying of trust in our time with different populistic movements, with gaslighting, with post-truth and everything. We have to come back to build trust and to speak truth. Please, I think you all can do, we all together can do much more on the trust building and also the values to come back to this action we so much need. Thank you.
Thank you. Henrik, for your words, for describing the work that we are doing here. I would like to open the floor again to those of you who want to speak, so I can see you're here. Anyone else afterwards? Over there, 2, 3. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Paul Rahmat from Vivat International, New York. I am from the Catholic community. Thank you for convening this dialogue, Talanoa dialogue. And today we talk about global stock take, taking stock from the faith community. And in this regard, I have some questions to bring in this table, in these meetings. What is the specific role of the faith community to contribute for global stocktake? And how, we know that our community on the grassroots do a lot of things in the context, in the relation to the taking stocks, and how can we recognize, acknowledge these efforts, and how to measure and quantify this effort as part of our contribution to the global stocktake. So in this regard, I have here concrete suggestions. One is my concrete suggestion is, one is how can we share our knowledge, our best practices, as Bishop Mark already shows from his community, Episcopal Church. These best practices can be shared to us, to one another, to enrich and to learn together. And I agree with what says that we are part of this global learning process, but also we are part of the of this global movement of humanity to cope with climate change, climate crisis. We are in the same boat on this journey. And the second suggestion I want to say here, we need technical assistance. We need some expert in this process to guide us to measure our efforts in taking stocks so that our contributions really credible. So credibility is very important in this process of our efforts. Thank you.
Okay, I go. We have some competition here with, if you want to start dancing, it's okay, but we would like to have the dialogue. I think I should, number 17, yeah, and then number 18, then number 19. So 17, please go ahead. The technicians, and 16, sorry.
Thank you so much, Father Heinrich. Hi everyone, I'm Sala Tisongo. I think it's really important for us to celebrate, the work that our community, the faith community, has done at COP28 and the years leading before, to COP28. But I also think that we should be very careful not to be working in a silo. There's 9 formal constituencies, including the indigenous peoples, the youths. So moving forward, I think it's important for us to establish processes to build trust with other constituencies that are also engaging at COP28. And I think between COPs, UUSC decided to host a pastoral care session for negotiators at this COP because of the establishment of the Faith Pavilion. This is just the beginning. It's almost like an experiment that we want to do at COP28. But I think between COPs is where that value, that trust building between our community and the actual negotiators that will be sort of talking about our future is very important. And I think that is something that we should be building on. And I think, indigenous peoples, youths are coming to us for support, particularly around non-economic loss and damage. And the Santiago Network on Loss and Damage is the technical group to be providing technical assistance. So I think we should really ratchet up what it means for us to provide spiritual support in the context of non-economic loss and damage. That is how we really establish ourselves within the formal processes. and not just, doing it outside of the UNFCCC framework. And lastly, we've heard so many things about how the faith community can really be supporting communities, but we also have a responsibility in creating the climate crisis. So I'd like to really understand, through the frameworks of reparations, repatriation, and restorative justice, what the role of the faith community is in both creating the climate crisis so that we can match our responsibility and action to the framework of reparations, repatriation, and restorative justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salote. I know that there is now the mic number 16 who wanted to say something. I don't remember your name, sorry.
Thank you. Did I do it? Thank you. I'm Reverend Rachel Tabor Hamilton. I am Shakan First Nation, which is an indigenous community in British Columbia. Though I serve the Episcopal Church as clergy, as a priest, and I am on Bishop Mark Andrus's delegation from the Episcopal Church. I talk today because I'm hoping that one of the things we might think about doing between now and the next COP is informed by an understanding that as early as the 70s, both environmentalists and economists were forecasting how water was going to become the next commodity. In addition to oil exploration and exploitation of fossil fuels, that water, as we looked at global increases in human population, and as we looked at climate change, as we looked at pollution of freshwater sources and waterways, and also the ocean. So what I would like to see us think about doing is gathering the stories of our faith traditions, wisdom traditions, cultural traditions that talk about the centrality of water. And in my indigenous tradition, for us, water is sacred. It is recognized as the vital source for all life on earth. It's something that we share with all our relations. And when we talk about that as indigenous people, it's all life. But also, in terms of science, we recognize that part of even what our space exploration is doing is looking for alternative water sources. We can do better in taking care of the sacredness of the water that we have here on Earth, and I think we need to prioritize it and create a strong statement that, again, as others have said, move our leadership in governance and religion from a colonial worldview that simply sees water as another extractive industry toward one that is one of human rights and animal rights and plant rights. It is the life on earth that we need to cultivate, that our religious and faith and philosophy traditions, of wisdom traditions, can all come together in an indigenized way and say, this is sacred, and we need to begin to treat it as that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for reminding us that nature, as we have said before here, but water in nature is sacred. The person with the mic 18 and then 19. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Anani Andondole, the delegates of Lutheran World Federation, and I'm from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Tanzania. Just a few words to narrate. Actually, it is not enough, but it is not fast enough. We are in a journey traveling together. We need not to give up to continue paving our voices on the challenges and proposing solutions while also taking actions. As faith community here, we need to provide a moral imperative for taking climate action, but also we need the moral voice and the spiritual authority of faith leaders globally to summon the conscience of world leaders, awaken their ambition, and also inspire them to do what is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your neighbors speaking now.
Good afternoon. Thank you so very much for this opportunity to dialogue. I think this is really important. And I really appreciate all the voices that have been talking about the need for us to be working towards better relationship with the land and with one another. Reverend James, some of the things that I've heard you say over the last few days have been particularly powerful. One of the things that I would like us to help think about is that we not just think about relationship with each other who care about the land and relationship with the land, but that we also build relationship with our leaders, with our, in those places where we have like members of Congress or state legislatures, or what Hendrik was talking about with building trust. I think that is so, so very important. And I think too often we say, oh, that person's never going to listen to us, so I'm just not going to bother talking to them, and I'm going to talk to the people who are going to listen to us. I'm the director of Lutheran Advocacy Minnesota, and with one of our legislators, I made the appointment, and he agreed to meet with me. And when I got there, instead of jumping right into, I'm here to talk about clean energy and about climate change, I knew that he'd been in the Philippines, and I'd been 6 years in Latin America. So I started with that. And I started working to find other commonalities and to build a relationship with him. And then I took this issue and I said, I am concerned about the people in your district who are going to be impacted by the closing of the coal plant, because one of the, well, 2 coal plants in his district are closing. And I tried to work to give him a whole different frame of thinking about it, both in terms of what alternatives can be done for the people who are impacted, but also what can be done to heal the land. And I appealed to his faith on that score. And then I asked to pray with him. I was walking out the door, and he said, stop, wait a minute. He said, I knew you were coming to talk about clean energy and climate change, and I was ready to have the fight. I was so ready to fight with you. I had all my talking points, and it was going to happen. And instead, you gave me things to think about. He said, I'm not going to promise today that I'm going to do what you're asking me to do on clean energy and on climate change, but I thank you for talking with me like another person who may care about God's creation. And I think we need to do more of that with our leaders.
Thank you very much. We have Vanya, and then we have you. Vanya, please get close to your mic. Oh, okay.
Thank you. Sorry for the cold. I want to pick up on a point which Hendrik made about greed. We talk about the oil industry, we talk about the banks, but we don't talk about the people who lead them, the CEOs, who are mainly Western middle-aged men, who seem to be completely lacking a spiritual dimension. And I think this is something that we must challenge, because these people are driven by greed, driven by wanting to increase their profits and their own personal fortunes, and they don't care a damn about the planet or the environment. And I think this is something all of us should be challenging.
Thank you very much, Vanya, for your good words. Bishop? And you can raise your hand if you want to speak next. I saw you. Thanks.
This is a challenging moment because so many people have shared so much, and it would sound like you're just making an echo of what others have said. But I'm going to try anyway, because I think it's important. We have learned that religious leaders can have a conversation with governments, and to talk to government is not easy. But religious leaders have learned to do that. And it brings about change. But what we need to start asking our religious leaders is not only to act, we need to ask them to be committed with the will, the political will. In Spanish, we say la voluntad. They are missing the will to get things done because they are so tied up with this political relationship with other groups that they just can't do the right thing. So when we talk to our government, let us make sure that we're asking that they too have the will to do the right thing. And just like my friend Vanya just said, the next group that we need to talk to are the corporate groups, the owners of the companies that are destroying and breaking down, and they are the ones who are challenging us with climate change. How do we talk to corporations? And thank you for the example of stepping into the room and making sure that there is a prayer. Many of the owners, you will believe it or not, they are Christians, or they respond to some belief, but nobody is talking to them or talking with them. So I think it's important for us to do that. Last but not least, I'm looking at my friend Hokabet, and we have invited indigenous groups to be at the table where negotiations are happening. It will be interesting to hear from her if those religious indigenous groups that are at the table, if anyone is listening to them. Because one thing is to be in the room, the other is to be at the table. But whenever you have a contribution to make, no one wants to listen, but rather they would run and ask you to take a picture with them. I think enough is enough. It's time for us as religious leaders to be able to speak truth not only to government, but to other instances that are not taking us seriously. This is a matter of justice. It's a matter of reimagining hope, but it's also a matter of raising and regaining again human dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julio. We have the person who is with the mic 13.
Hello, my name is Abhairaj Nayak, and I'm representing 3 organizations from Bangalore in the south of India, the Initiative for Climate Action, People Tree, and the Center for Spiritual Ecology. And over the past few years, I've been attempting to bring together a generative dialogue on interfaith peace building and climate action. And I just wanted to quickly share what I think are 3 concrete actions that we should consider attempting between this COP and the next. So the first of these would be, I think, at least in the context of South Asia, there's been tremendous silence from influential religious and faith-based leaders on the climate crisis. And so for each one of us who might be at COP28 or in the room, I count very many leaders who have chosen not to say something. And I think as part of a caucus or a surfacing of the voice of faith and religion at this time, it's important for us to ask leaders of all religions, of all faiths, of denominations, cults, and communities to express their position at this moment in the history of the planet and see whether we once again receive silence or not. Second, I think the most poignant conversations have occurred when, at least again I speak from the context of India, when faith-based or religious communities have clashed and one has asked them, does climate pose a common enemy for you, and are you agreeable to doing something together to build resilience or to even make a case for loss and damage based actions. And I think that would be, again, a concrete action to pick up, that is really go to areas across the world where faith-based conflict has occurred and see whether there is a common minimum agreement on resilience or adaptation or loss and damage in the climate context. And Last and finally, I think many colleagues have already mentioned this, but if there is a humanist understanding of what is the kind of new human that needs to emerge at this moment of breakdown, I think it is only within the religious and faith communities that that leadership can come. And I certainly see that being something that all faiths and all religions can contribute to and agree to. So what human are we waiting for? Can we together paint that picture? So these are 3 tasks that I propose for us to take up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your good words on India. It's important to know. We are interested by this conversation. We have been working with the Interfaith Liaison Committee, so if you want to go on in this dialogue in one way or another, you can Google us, Interfaith Liaison Committee, and you'll see our contacts, because I think that this kind of conversation is really healthy, unique, and needed. And we would be happy to see how we can proceed. And otherwise, we have also Jokabet that was to answer Julio, I think.
¿Cuál era la pregunta?
¿La pregunta?
La pregunta era...
En inglés.
Voy a traducir. ¿Puedo? La pregunta era si al momento de tener la posibilidad de estar en los lugares donde se toma decisión, si realmente se escucha la voz y la contribución que viene desde las... The question is, translated, if once the indigenous community are present in the places where decisions are being made, if that voice and that knowledge is really taken into consideration, is it really heard?
Thank you for the question. Well, I was following the agriculture negotiations when we have the opportunity to talk about our statement. You know, the majority of the negotiators depend on what is the position of the government. But I think when we talk about what happened in our context and what we want for them, some of them listen, yes, but I think the good thing is because we are going to continue has a relation after the negotiation. It's not only the negotiation moment. And then when we have, in the example is in agriculture, many of them come to us to talking about what they hearing about that, because when they working in the statement on their paper in agriculture, that's an example, they could be taken out some statement about indigenous people, and they could refer to be a part of these statements. And then I think part of this negotiation is important, because if we are not there, just they can take it out, some phrases, some paragraph, some statement about indigenous communities, youth and gender and others. I think it's very important to be there, and when it's open, the moment to talk, we can talk and there are listen. Now it's finished agriculture, no, nothing happened, because they are going to continue negotiating Bonn in June the next year. But we have some conversation with some negotiators. I think that kind of thing you say is very important to continue to.
Thank you so much, Jokaret, for bringing the experience into our room. I would like to introduce now Francesco Corvaro. He is the Special Envoy for Climate Change from Italy, and he's joined our conversation here out of interest. So thanks for coming, and we'd love to hear from you.
So I'm sorry because I wasn't late, but the COP is tough, very tough. In my opinion, I believe very much in the role of this kind of discussion for a very easy reason. Climate change is something that put together in the same position. So it is clearly important that we put on the table that under this aspect there are no differences among us. We are in the same real position. And I was very glad about the fact that Pope Francis couldn't come, because he is fantastic under this point of view, to put in evidence what is the same for everyone, not the differences. When I received this appointment 3 months ago, I am a university professor, so I am a scientist, someone that wrote the papers that use IPCC. From my point of view, it is very easy to understand that we can solve the problem of climate change. We have the technologies, the capabilities. From our point of view, the scientific point of view, is we have no reason why we are in this situation right now. When I entered inside the panel, in New York in particular, I understood immediately that there are a lot of people here, but there isn't a real dialogue. We have, you call a negotiation. Why we have to make a negotiation? Negotiation is when we have differences, but we have the same problem. So where is the needs of negotiation? We need to start to do what is necessary. And if you are not good, if you have a cold or some of these, you go to the doctor and say, what is my situation? What I can do? And this more or less is the same. My colleagues gave a lot of indication, precise indications, and we have the possibility to follow this pathway. The problem is that there is no real dialogue, and some kind of panel like this put in evidence that instead it is possible to create a dialogue, even if in a particular aspect that is the faith, that normally you think that is something that put some on a side and the other on the other side. No, you are the example that is possible to do this. For G7 presidencies, I am asking to my government to put in the agenda the importance of climate diplomacy. Because you know better than me that there are a lot of bad situations around the world, in Ukraine, in Middle East, and obviously the positions are different, extremely different. But climate change is something that is an higher level. Because if we are not able to find the way to contrast this, some of these areas can't be useful to life, to the human life. So starting from this, really, we have the possibility to demonstrate that it's possible to be in the same table together to really solve the problem, because it is possible. This is the positive aspect that normally I say to my students. Don't be afraid, we have the possibility, but we have a very short time. So thanks for the opportunity, because I appreciate very much this kind of discussion, and it is extremely important to empower this kind of dialogues. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your words and for being here with us. It makes a difference. My friend Henrik here would like to sum up what has been said here. And I have a few calls, if some of you would like to get it on paper, and then we'll have a moment of silence.
Thank you. I don't think that I can sum up the discussion because it has been so rich and go in so many directions. But I'm very thankful to be a part of a community of people that actually coming to the table to be there to listen, but also to respond. So for the future of this, we are in a setting where there are negotiations and there are tables, and as you said, negotiations is of different interest, but it's also of how to find the best way forward. Because science will help us, but how to find the best way forward. And from faith communities, I think we are one of the few where the interests are for humanity. To tell, I used to use a kind of picture for this, is that in every room where negotiations is taking place, you should put 3 empty chairs. Put those 3 empty chairs to represent the poor of the world, the coming generations, and the earth itself, because they have no real voice. They have no kind of self-interest. They are not heard. But you must take into consideration those who are not being heard at negotiations and not listen to those with the strongest voices. And for us as faith communities, I think that is our call, to actually bring voices. They are not voiceless. They have voices, but they are not heard. But this has to be reminded in every discussion when people are very loud and have some self-interest. Bring the voices of the poor people of the world, the next generations, and the creation itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henrik, for these 3 empty chairs that are full of meaning. We are finishing. We have 1 minute left. Let's have a moment of silence together.